last 100 years, the last 1,000 years, or the last 10,000 years, almost any place in the world, by almost any measure, things are getting better. And it's always the optimists that are pushing for change, because they're the ones who actually believe in a better tomorrow. Hello, my name is Byron Reese, and I write and speak about the future. And I'll begin by playing my cards all face up. As you can probably guess by the clip I just shared, I think the future is going to be amazing. In fact, I agree with what Gene Roddenberry, the man who created Star Trek, said about the future. He said that in the future, there will be no hunger and there will be no greed, and all the children will know how to read. And so I would like to take a few moments and introduce myself, and then talk a little bit about how this future might come about. Now, I think a good way to get to know somebody is look at some stuff on their bucket list, things they've checked off and things that they haven't. And so I would like to begin by sharing 3 things from my bucket list with you. The first was to be in a movie with Sandra Bullock. And guess what? Checked off. Here I am in Miss Congeniality. That's Sandra Bullock in the foreground, and if you look in the background, there's yours truly. I like to tell people that between the two of us, Sandra Bullock and I have received 2 Academy Award nominations. The second thing on my bucket list I'd like to share with you is I've always wanted to visit North Korea wearing a Perry the Platypus t-shirt. And in fact, here I am wearing said t-shirt in Pyongyang, North Korea. In fact, I tweeted this photo to one of the creators of Phineas and Ferb, and he tweeted back a Star Trek reference, which was, "Where no platypus has gone before." The third and final thing on my bucket list is something I haven't quite accomplished yet. It's to start a YouTube channel that gets more views than Justin Bieber. Now, as you can see, Justin is just over 7 billion views on his channel, but the Expert Village channel, which I started, has just passed 3 billion, and I'm gaining on it. So now that I have told you a little bit about myself, I would like to talk about the future and how it might possibly unfold. Now, much of what I think about it is in my book, Infinite Progress, which is subtitled How the Internet and Technology Will End Ignorance, Disease, Poverty, Hunger, and War. And in it, I cover all kinds of topics about the future. What will work be like in the future? What about poverty? What about robots? And will computers become sentient? And will we have robot overlords? Is our future going to be like the dystopian movies we see in the movie theater? Or is it going to be some kind of a utopian Shangri-La? And I talk a little bit about this in this clip. Now, I think poverty, hunger, and disease are simply technological problems. And if that is true, if there's no reason they need to exist, and they're just technological problems we haven't solved, then they must have technological solutions. And if in fact the rate of technological change is increasing, I believe we'll find these solutions soon. I think the progress that I write about will come about because of technological advances. You've probably noticed that the rate of technological advance continues to increase and increase and increase. In computers, this is because of something called Moore's Law, where the power of computers doubles on a regular basis. But it turns out that all kinds of technology behave this way. And because of this, we can only expect ever-increasing speed of technological advance. And I think there's a rather profound conclusion that comes out of this that I talk about in this talk. But what does it mean practically? It means practically it took us 3,000 years to get from the abacus to the iPad, and in 25 years, you're going to have something further ahead of the iPad than it is ahead of the abacus. Something in 25 years you cannot even comprehend from where you're sitting right now. And what does this mean? This means, and this is the most important thing I'm going to say in this entire talk, what does it mean? It means that because of this, all purely technical problems will be solved. If it's purely technical, it will be solved. And if we don't solve it today, it took us 10,000 years to get the computers we have today. 18 months are going to be twice as good. 18 months, twice and twice and twice. All technology does that. So all technical problems will be solved. In addition to all of this, we haven't really grasped all the things that the internet is able to do. We understand how it kind of connects us in email and the web and all of those things. But it is becoming something even bigger than all of that, something we can only see in outline at this point. It's becoming a form of a collective memory for the planet, a place to record every cause and effect that happens. And I talk about this aspect of it in this talk here. When a new technology comes out, like the internet, the only way people can understand it is in light of the prior technology, what it's kind of replacing. And that's how come that when TV came out, and people said, hey, what's TV? What they said is, oh, it's radio, but with pictures. And so they were locked in that way of thinking. It's radio with pictures. And that's why the very first television shows, the very first television broadcasts, were generally men in suits and ties standing behind microphones reading the news. And yet we just filmed it. And so it was still radio with pictures in their mind. And it took years and years and years before you could actually do something with the medium that escapes that kind of defines it as its own thing. And then you get things like Battlestar Galactica or Lost, or things you just couldn't have ever done with radio. And I think that's really what has happened with the internet. When the internet first came out, we could only view it in light of the prior technology. One of my hobbies is to give interviews outdoors in high winds so that my hair looks ridiculous while I'm speaking. Here I am talking about where I think this is all heading while I am indulging in that very hobby. This kind of flowering of humanity. And so when you imagine, what if everybody on the planet had that power over their own life to make decisions for themselves? And when, as I said, every Dante can write his Inferno and every Da Vinci can paint his Mona Lisa, you can only look forward with great hope and expectations of just all the possibilities that will have for the planet.
And that kind of uplift, you think, will nullify a lot of the negative effects. But hey, let's not be too Panglossian. The point is, we are going to have to go through some bad stuff first. Is that not the case? Well,
I think it's easy to lose sight of what we've accomplished. You know, in 10,000 years of history, we have, we've ended the legal protection, at least, of slavery. We have raised the legal status of women almost everywhere. We've ended torture for entertainment, We've ended gladiator battles. We've ended debtor's prison. We've invented habeas corpus, trial by jury, evidentiary rules. I mean, we have had an unending amount of progress, and then you get to this point, and all of a sudden everybody gets this hand-wringing pessimism of, okay, now it's all going to start getting worse. And that is without precedent. That is historically without precedent. Now, the way we got that way, the way we were able to progressively, I think, advance civilization was by dealing with all the hard challenges and all the hard issues as they came up. And so it's always easy to look at the cases where we're failing and think that's the story. The big story is, we are progressing and we have so much more left to do, but the trend line is pointing in a good direction, I believe. So that is what I think about the future. And the good news is that absent some kind of comet hitting the Earth scenario, I don't really think there's a way we can mess this up. If you think about it, all the hardest work has already been done. Humanity managed to claw its way from barbarism to civilization. And it's up to us to finish that job. Thank you very much.